Hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode number three of Supply Chain LinkUp podcast. Our topic for today is demand planning and inventory optimization strategies for small and mid-sized businesses. For today's episode, we have a very special guest, Kevin Smith. Kevin, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Good afternoon, Gino. Thank you very much for hosting me in your podcast. I'm Kevin Smith. I have over 15 years of experience in supply chain across various geographical area. I started my career in Europe. Then I oversee project in Asia and had to travel there quite frequently, as well as Africa, and then came to the United States about 7 years ago to establish myself still in the realm of supply chain. So kind of a global expertise that I gained through the upstream and downstream of the supply chain, from sourcing of raw material, vendors, suppliers, all the way through the distribution and last mile delivery. So again, thank you for having me in your podcast today.
Of course, Kevin, thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy man. Taking the time to talk to us about supply chain is greatly appreciated. So, again, the topic is demand planning and inventory optimization. Let's start with demand forecasting. From your point of view, how can small and mid-sized businesses improve demand forecasting with limited resources?
First, I'd like to kind of reposition the question in a broader spectrum, in the sense that those challenges are first and foremost true for every single organization that is distributing a good, a product, either it's CPG, B2B, D2C. It doesn't really matter. That is a challenge that is shared 500 Fortune's companies all the way down to the small and medium-sized businesses, which is the core niche and businesses that my consulting practice, CAS Consulting, is addressing. So to respond to your question specifically, today, the small and medium-sized businesses, to improve and gain better demand and forecasting, there is no 10 ways of doing it. And I would highly recommend Excel. We need agility, flexibility, and being able to revise the models built. The daily basis will quickly vanish to take place for a weekly or monthly basis. The reality is we always need to look in conjunction with our inventory, what the demand is and what the actual depletion of our inventory look like, in order to reconsider any forecast methodology that we could have taken. But very few data are needed at the beginning and get-go to start, which is basically an historic of sales and actual inventory in-house or on the way from your suppliers. Always take into consideration the lead times, the production lead time of your suppliers, as well as the freight and logistics lead time to get it to your doors, and potentially also inbounded into your warehouse or distribution network. We can also think about the different tools and what is a cost-effective way to do that. Again, being more narrow and focused on small and medium-sized business, I highly recommend Excel. If you have any ERPs.
So, thank you for that great answer, Kevin. I agree. Demand planning optimization is a problem no matter what size the company is. I've worked for Fortune 500, 100 companies, and it's the same problem, whether it's a startup or, again, a global conglomerate. It's just one of those pains that we all go through in supply chain and folks in finance as well, right? So, thank you for your feedback on that. So, from an SMB perspective, what cost-effective tools do you think can enhance forecast accuracy?
Well, forecast accuracy comes through the process first and the type of data that we're about to crunch in order to gain more accuracy in our forecast. But definitely lately, I've been working using Ship Edge and Acumatica and Syspro, so as other ERPs or warehouse or inventory management software. Those three that I'm just named are great tools in order to enhance forecast accuracy and demand planning. And I'm going to tell you why. First, it's cost effective to implement those, and there's teams that can definitely help and support implementation after the launch. And that's kind of what is key: training, the resources of any of your clients or my clients to gain better hands-on experience of their ERP and gain the full use of the different features that are available for them in order to manage their business on a day-to-day, weekly, and monthly and quarterly basis. So definitely, I would recommend one of those three because from a cost-effective standpoint, they will not cost that much, great support, and a great team to help you gain the knowledge you need to manage your business every day on that realm.
Correct. I think nowadays an ERP is critical to any organization. And with the companies that are out there, like you said, Acumatica or Cispro, they can enhance and streamline and automate a lot of the functionalities, a lot of the problems that companies go through from a day-to-day or strategic level. And having one source of truth can really be a lifesaver for SMBs, right? As opposed to working in Excel on one area, a different
Absolutely.
data set from another area, and whose data is correct. And then if something's updated in one file, the other file is not updated. So which forecast should be done, which sales numbers is correct. So I think super critical to have an ERP, one source of truth, to be honest, is critical from my point of view as well.
I agree with you. Even though I mentioned Excel earlier, which is where we all start from,
Exactly.
the
Mhm.
goal and the objective should be ultimately quickly to adopt an ERP that will embed all the data of the organization. This will give way more accuracy in the data management and in demand forecast and planning, and also provide a level of comfort and avoid any conflict about what is the source of data, where did you pull it from, is there kind of sync informations in
Yeah.
there? Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. But to your point, if you're just starting out, if you're a startup company and you can't afford an ERP, Excel is the go-to platform, right? Again, if once you start getting maybe more sales or you can afford to have an ERP, even a smaller ERP, I think that's the way to go. So inventory management wise, what strategies can SMBs use to optimize inventory without overextending budget?
And we'll come back to the basics. First thing is understanding what are your revenue drivers. And as you mentioned, budget, I will plug to my revenue drivers, my budget, and my what is available to invest as cash in order to create returns for the organization. So to be a more practical in that definition, I will recommend any small businesses that start or that have just an average level of maturity to make sure a classification ABC of their items in terms of revenue stream is built. The second point is to do a XYZ classification. So when the Pareto methodology is created, then I will check what is my item velocity in terms of demand. When my item velocity is checked, I can cross-reference my revenue driver with my demand, which is my XYZ. When I know those two factors, I will define 6 categories called AX to CZ. And based on those and where the item is classified on those, I will make sure to just have the right service levels for each of them. So for my top movers, that can be located in most likely in the X and the Y category, I will make sure that those are always in stock. It's not negotiable. In regard to the item located in C and Z, which is low revenue generation and low demand, I will accept to be short at some given point during my sales cycle. I will just accept it. Doesn't mean it's something that should be happening every time, but I will definitely maximize the use of my cash on the item with high revenue, high velocity, high demand.
Perfect. I agree with your approach 100%, Kevin. Regarding technology and tools, from your point of view, Kevin, I know we talked briefly about ERPs. What affordable technologies are best suited for SMBs and inventory management?
Again, I think it's definitely ERPs, and when the company is really small, maybe a simple inventory management tool on with a subscription base around 50 to 60 bucks a month. But let's get back to ERPs because that's a company lies in several components, which is sales, marketing, and distribution. I will just put HR outside of it and just looking at the broad spectrum of an organization and how the inventory management works and what data we need. We need to know what we're going to sell. We need to know how we're going to market the product. And we need to know how our vendor is going to supply that product. And based on that, we're able to make a decent demand planning and forecasting. So definitely the ERP and the solutions such as, again, CISPRO or Acumatica that are focused on some industries such as manufacturing, for example, can be a great use of an ERP there to go further down layers that a manufacturing needs and get closer to a manufacturing execution system. Sometimes we have both ERP and MES. Sometimes we cannot afford both. So we need an ERP that understands what are the intricacies of our industry or verticals and what component we need to embed in that as natively as possible to avoid to get into basically a lot of development cost with IT and stay aligned with what the software is proposing. So that's definitely my recommendation. And also it helps encapsulate real-time data about our sales cycles, and understand the product life cycle in general, from sales pipeline to distribution and delivery. When do we start? When do we finish? Not including the customer support and eventually the return, but at least from when we initiate the sales and the awareness of a product all the way to its distribution to the end consumer.
Right. So to me, data is key, and having that data and that visibility, like you mentioned, Kevin, end to end on your inventory, it comes in to when it ships out, and how is it related? How does it talk to your accounting systems? So having that inventory visibility, that supply chain transparency, and having that one source of truth going from one department to the next, to me is critical. And having these platforms out there, these ERPs out there for suited for SMBs, is critical to have in any company's survival nowadays, right? Because as we all know, business is war. You have to be ready. You have to have the data. Otherwise, you'll make the wrong decision, or your competition will make that decision for you and take over that market.
Absolutely. That's what may happen. So definitely being ahead of the curve, proactive in the approach. Nowadays, there's various ways definitely to get informed about what could be a good solution from any small business. So definitely that's a path to embrace as quickly as possible. As you mentioned, and we are talking today about inventory. Inventory and finance works in conjunction hand by hand. And those two layers of information are critical. So we're trying to align the product flow, information flow, and financial flow every time. And having an ERP is definitely a cornerstone in order to achieve that.
Correct. Okay, so changing gears a little bit, Kevin, supplier collaboration. In your experience, I see that smile on your face. How can SMBs build strong relationships with suppliers to manage demand effectively?
I am a firm believer of transparency and honesty. It's very key. Your suppliers is not just a supplier, it's a partner. If your supplier fail or collapse, it's going to definitely bring a layer of challenges, wiggles, tension, and maybe difficulties in your business. So nurture the relation with the supplier, start with honesty and transparency in what you aim to distribute within your value chain, and make them part and feel that they play a part and a role into that. Sometimes definitely you address suppliers that are sometimes bigger than you, and they may care less about it. Nonetheless, honesty, transparency, your best guesstimate will help nurture the relationship. And having multiple touch points on a monthly basis. So I would highly recommend a monthly touch points, if not at least bi-weekly touch points, help enhance suppliers' adhesion and cohesiveness with the overarching goal of a SMB. If we detach from that, the supplier then just look at us as another client, and especially when we're small and our weight to them is very small in terms of revenue, they may not provide the care. But if the relationship, which is paramount in all businesses, is solid enough, respectful, honest, and transparent, supplier will stick and will try always to deliver the best product on timely fashion for us. That's based on my 15 years of experience. That's what I experienced the most. When we try to play and place blanket PO just to gain a little bit in cost and not being sure about what's going to happen further down the pipeline, it never rippled well.
Right. I agree with the honesty and transparency portion. To add to that transparency, from my experience also is having holding yourself accountable and your supplier accountable, and by having the data so that you're going off of facts, right? So you're going off of evidence of, okay, your on-time delivery is X%. Expectation is you're supposed to be at 98, 95, whatever that KPI or the SLA is. And having that honest conversation of, hey, are you not do you not have the capacity, or what's going on? How come some of the shipments were behind, or do you have quality issues? I think that's key to any relationship, right? Even in our personal relationships, that applies to our relationships with our colleagues at work or with our suppliers, where, hey, if there's an issue, that communication, having open communication is key, like you said, right? And
And
establishing that relationship.
absolutely, absolutely right. And kind of thinking what you're saying. Just to add to that and put a word for everyone that would listen to this conversation. There's two aspects. There's the relationship and building a relationship, and there's the supplier management, which can be done through a tool such as a scorecard, which you just described, accuracy rate, on-time delivery, quality defect, so on and so forth. And also basically the ability to deliver upon the PO expressed to them and shared with them. A lot of suppliers, sometimes they may short you or add some quantities. And when they're shorting you, usually that's where the problems comes, because you plan on those products to make sure you can feed the demand that is further down the stream, on the downstream side. And if you cannot feed them, then you start having issues, sales, marketing, brand reputation, and those things needs to be protected. And that protection comes to a strong ties and strong bond with your suppliers. At the end, we both in business, helping each other succeed is how we collectively succeed.
100%. You talked about that scorecard. My go-to balanced scorecard that I use four different points. I use, obviously, number one for any company is cost. Second is quality. Third point of that balanced scorecard is the reliability. So that measures on-time delivery. So those are quantitative factors in that scorecard, and I added a qualitative factor wherein we talk about the customer support, right? It's not something that we can put as a it's more subjective, where we talk to the buyers and we look at their performance on, hey, I have a push out or I have a pull in on this PO. How flexible is that supplier? And that's part of the qualitative scorecard portion of the scorecard. But we try to balance it out. My experience I've done in the past is, again, we measure cost, quality, reliability, and customer support and flexibility. So yeah, so talking about risk management now.
To come back to one of the points you just highlighted when you mentioned cost. Yes, cost is very important. It's affecting directly our P&L and our ability to generate money. Nonetheless, again, we cater this conversation to SMBs, and I've seen too much SMBs being stuck on cost. We need to understand something. There is a triptych: cost, quality, lead time. That's what we manage in supply chain. We can only have two of those three factors at the time. When we try to piggyback on cost, we're paying further down the line on the lead time or on the quality of the product, which, when we recenter the debate about value, create more issues, challenges for the organization and for the overarching goal of a SMB than paying the extra 5 cents or 10 cents that have been asked for. So piggybacking on pennies ripple down the line. Suppliers aren't happy to make business with you, so you will not be the priority. Suppliers not happy to make business with you, so he might not answer to you right away. Reactivity is maybe 24, 48 hours, while when the relationship is smooth, because the price is fair, then they will serve you to the best of their ability all the way through the value chain, which at the end makes you win. Brand reputation, customer service, ability to switch and kind of evolve with the change of the industry. So cost is definitely something to look at, but definitely not the decision factor that should be used. That's my humble opinion on that.
I agree. You have to find the right value, right, for the
Correct.
cost that you're paying.
Yes.
So I understand and I agree with you fully. Risk management. On my first episode podcast, we talked to a nearshoring partner of ours. And in supply chain, as you know, we've been talking about JIT, just in time, right? So that we maximize our working capital
Absolutely.
and minimize inventory levels, which you don't know if it's going to sell or not, et cetera, et cetera. But being 3 to 4 years out of COVID, now we have, instead of JIT, just in case inventory. So from your point of view, how can SMBs mitigate risk related to demand fluctuations and or supply chain disruptions?
I would say this question that has multiple answers, and it depends on multiple factors. What industry are you in? What's the stage and maturity of your organization? What's the capital that you have under the carpet that you're able to sit on for 6 months average? And know what I mean by know your industry is, do you know what your audience is and where your audience will go within the next 12 to 18 months? That's the spectrum we're looking at right now when we're trying to buffer inventory and build buffers all the way our supply chain. I'm not a firm believer of building buffers after buffers. Those needs to be very strategically placed in order to gain access to the product when it's needed. Usually SMBs, they don't have months and months and months of inventory to sit on. That's just the reality and nature of the business for small and medium-sized businesses. So let's approach the easiest way and just finish by the most complex one. In the sense where a company has some cash because they're doing pretty well, they maybe raise another series C or D or whatever, and they can buy some cash to keep nurturing and bolstering that revenue generating that they need to do. That's fine. They can definitely place bigger POs, provision for what the demand will look like in the interim of the production lead time of their supplier and the logistics, and add maybe to it a caution of 2 months or 3 if they have the cash on strong product, on A and X product only. I want to reiterate, you don't do that on slow movers. Absolutely not. On the other scenario, where it's SMB with less cash and the cash flow is very tight, I would still advise to work with the supplier production lead time, delivery lead time, and add to it no more than a month of worth of supplies as a buffer, or work candidly with the suppliers to be able to make a buyback to place a bigger PO, just get a portion of it, and get whatever is left after their production shipped at another period if we see the demand increasing. If not, it will just be part of the inventory that will be basically consumed by the following PO. That's the way I would approach that, the management of such situation. Just in time, just in case, just the reality we are living in. Cash is tight and cash is king at the same time. King to build inventory on your strategic product. When it's tight, you have to be creative in the way you gain access to your product to generate revenue.
Yep. Great insight, Kevin. Really, it's really tough for SMBs, right?
It is.
Inflation is out there. You have cost of employees, cost of supply chain. Meantime, you have to balance that with supply chain risk and disruption and demand fluctuation. It's a different world we live in. So, like you said, SMBs really need to be creative in managing their inventory levels and reach out to experts, right? So, a lot of SMBs are not supply chain experts, right? They are in their world because they have a great product, they are great at marketing, they have a certain niche, and most of the time it's not in supply chain. And there are people like us who have been in supply chain for 15, 20 years, who've seen pretty much 98% of what's to be seen, especially with COVID happening. While there are different industries, supply and demand issues is recurring in any industry, and you have to learn how to pivot and reach out to a subject matter expert such as you or I or our companies. With that said, industry trends, Kevin, what are you seeing in the industry in terms of demand management or inventory optimization?
These few things that I've seen, but to piggyback on what you just said about expertise for SMB, I think it's heavily discounted today still, even though COVID created awareness about supply chain. Small and medium-sized businesses could most of the time focus on where they are the strongest. And what I've seen so far may be customer relationship management and or marketing, and defer the supply chain, outsource it, and they will basically gain way more to it because they can now just manage performance of their outsourced supply chain team instead to have to deal with sometimes collaborator level of maturity or knowledge. Knowledge can get acquired, so it's not a problem. But involvement, implication, commitment, holidays per here, holidays there, sick days, whatever can happen. By outsourcing, it helps a lot to just focus on your business, monitor the key metrics you establish with your vendor and your outsource supply chain team, and just focus on that. So you can spend the time on your business where it needs to be, while sometimes someone that knows the supply chain and a team of experts manage your day-to-day and make sure you have the right product at the right time, at the right place to generate the money that you need. Now, to answer the trends that I've seen in the industry, we are coming back to data. We are coming back to ERP. We are coming back to digitalization. We are coming back to big words that we hear nowadays since over a year, which is AI. AI to predict patterns, machine learning to learn from our own patterns, AI to enhance it. Data is the new currency, even in supply chain, and since a while, since a long time. And now it's definitely time for the SMBs to embrace a single source of data through an ERP to facilitate their demand planning, their forecasting activities, and link the different stakeholders of their own value chain to the puzzle to make sure they have the right staffing, the right financials, the right product at the right time, they address the right customers, and they have the right sales team to convert the opportunity into a sale. So today, in terms of trends, digitalization of supply chain, stakeholders integration from the upstream to the downstream. So close collaboration with your suppliers. It can goes with API integration for understanding the demand, EDI integrations where they are plugged directly to your inventory. In small businesses, it's not a common practice, but it's still a practice that can be well defined through the technology available today. Sometimes it's just a few clicks and it works pretty well. And definitely data enhancements with any platform they will use to gain insightful metrics about the business that they can turn into action items to manage more effectively and make sure they made the right decisions.
Correct. Very well said, Kevin. Those are all things that I'm seeing in the market as well with AI, machine learning, and they are embedded in a lot of ERP systems, including for mid-market ERP such as Acumatica or Syspro. So with all of that being said, we talked about inventory optimization pretty much end to end, from technology to best practices to managing your suppliers. Any parting words for our audience?
Um, what I would say is first, spend time, invest time to learn your industry. It's outside of supply chain, and I see supply chain as a whole and as something working horizontally in your business because we are addressing and working with sales, marketing, finance mainly, but also HR for staffing issues or some needs in such capacity. Know your audience, know your industry. That's the first factors. The second one is definitely build strong ties with your suppliers, wherever they are, suppliers and the vendors. So any suppliers based in stateside or overseas, make sure you gain better relationship. They understand your challenges and you also understand theirs because at the end, your supplier challenges are yours and your challenges are the one of your suppliers if you want to be a fruitful business. So with that in mind, I think that's the two first factors. Inventory management comes after that. Why? Because when you have strong knowledge of your industry, your audience, and strong ties with your suppliers, inventory management is way easier. Demand planning and forecasting, way easier. By definition, forecast is wrong. We all know that. To gain more accuracy, we need to embed more data and also have partners that are facilitating and agile as we need to be as a small business to help us always gain access to the supplies we need to distribute. So building those relationships, again, emphasizing on that, making sure you are gaining better data and all those data are encapsulated at the same place through an ERP instead of 10 Excel files that needs to merge together and that can collapse at any time because you need to spend as many time in maintenance of those files that maybe on finding what the data are telling you. So through an ERP, what you will do is spending time to understand where you need to go with your business and then action there instead of maintaining 10 Excel files that needs to talk to each other all the time. Every time you need to add a new variable, well, you need to change all the coding of your Excel files. Well, I see you smiling, so you know what I'm talking about. And
I
that's
have
something,
nightmares. I have nightmares
yes,
about those, Kevin.
it's a
Back in
headache.
my days as an analyst or a planner or a buyer. So I agree with you 100%.
And again, focus just on your A and X, Y inventory. A, B, X, Y inventory. The C, X is a good product. Uh, Definitely allocate all the resources needed there. But the CZ, the BZ, the AZ, just manage them with whatever lead time will come with that. If you have that opportunity in B2B and the customer can place the PO and you can deliver 12, 14 weeks later, that's absolutely fine. Just use that. If it's on a D2C market, definitely the customer will not wait for you 12 weeks. So just disregard that product and focus on where the revenue is and where your marketing needs to focus on to bring more demand on those products. That's my share and my 2 cents here with the listener of that podcast. And definitely happy to provide more questions or more answers if needed.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. Very valuable, maybe half an hour talking about supply chain. You guys probably noticed Kevin and I are supply chain nerds and we're proud of it. And we can probably talk about supply chain for a whole week and still have more things to talk about. So again, Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and appreciate the feedback that you provided to me and to our audience. And I will speak to you later. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Gino. Thank you at GlobalityNet. And definitely you can follow me on Case Consulting on LinkedIn. Definitely reach out to me for any questions. It's free. Don't worry, there's no charges here. We just like to discuss about supply chain. Have a great day. Thank you, Gino.
Thanks, Kevin.